And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Steel City Sports Report, where today we are covering the ending of the 2024 NFL trade deadline. Lots of moves happening today, especially with your Pittsburgh Steelers. They finally got a number 2 wide receiver. Yes, the saga, the absolute mental pain of just every day talking about what are the Steelers going to do at wide receiver. They traded away Davante Johnson in the offseason, and they never brought in a legit number 2 wide receiver. We have watched Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin try to fill in that role, be a stopgap for the first half of this season. Well, now they finally have their answer. Mike Williams of the New York Jets is coming to town, and this is not really a surprise among many Steeler fans. Going back to the summer in an attempt to lure a wide receiver 2 in place of Davante Johnson, Mike Williams was near the top of the Steelers list. They did have a meeting scheduled with him to come to Pittsburgh and meet about possibly signing there. He went to the New York Jets and met with them first, and he never made it out of New York with a contract. He signed there with Aaron Rodgers, thinking that they were certainly going to be better than what they have been so far this season. And his time up in New York, I think it's safe to say, is something he would very much like to forget. He was rarely playing there, and when he was playing, he wasn't seeing the ball much. He had a whole big snafu with Aaron Rodgers. He tossed a game-losing pick in a game earlier this year that he blamed Mike Williams on running the wrong route on. So that kind of already had Williams already 1 foot out the door. Could this trade have been made sooner? Certainly, as soon as that happened, I think that trade could have gone down. It is a 5th-round pick going back to the Jets in this deal. The Steelers are also, I should say, taking on the full salary of Mike Williams. So, I mean, this trade, honestly, it's something that needed to be done. You know, there's really nothing you can do at this point. There were some other names on there, and let's just start from the beginning here. Ever since Davante Johnson got traded, Steeler fans have gone through the pain of, oh, Brandon Aiyuk's available. We're going to get Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk ended up re-signing with the 49ers. Okay, now Davante Adams, he's on his way out of Sin City in Las Vegas. Let's go get him. Davante Adams goes from the then 2-5 Raiders to, he went from losing with the Raiders to losing with his best friend Aaron Rodgers. So glad to see that's working out for you, Davante. And then there was for a couple of days, Cooper Kupp may be getting traded from the Rams. That never panned out. And, the Rams, they're back in a weak division. That division is really up for grabs with all 4 teams out there in the NFC. So they're going to hang on to him. Some other big names, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they're going to stay with the Seahawks as the Seahawks, like the Rams, they're also going to be fighting in that same division to try to make the playoffs. You had Cortland Sutton from the Broncos, who, he's their top receiver out there in Denver, working with a young quarterback in Bo Nix. They're not completely out of the playoff picture yet, so they're going to try to make a run there. And for a team that just cut Russell Wilson, I doubt that the Broncos were going to send their top receiver to Pittsburgh to catch balls from Russell Wilson yet again. You're not going to pay a guy $39 million to play for the Steelers and then give him your best weapon. So now we're here with the consolation prize of Mike Williams. It isn't too bad. There were a little bit of better options out there. You traded a 5th-round pick for him. That 5th-round pick could have gone to DeAndre Hopkins, who, if you watched Monday Night Football last night, he lit it up with Kansas City, 2 touchdowns, I believe he had in that game. Would have really liked him, even though I think I heard the Steelers weren't really all that interested in him. You had Adam Thielen available, who's a very proven wide receiver in this league. He had another year added onto his contract, but I think he's going to stay in Carolina. He's not going to get moved, so that they have a veteran presence in their building to mentor their young receivers. One guy that, not really many people were talking about that I sure would have liked to have kicked the tires on or at least made a phone call about is Keenan Allen from the Bears. Allen teammates with Mike Williams back in a Chargers uniform. He has 1 year left on his deal. He would have been a heck of a rental there, and he gives you some of the same attributes, if not better attributes, than Mike Williams. But you know what? Here we are. The Steelers, like I said, they liked what Williams brought to the table. Going back to this offseason, just reading off some stats here on Mike Williams. Another name, wide receiver, Darius Slayton from the Giants. The Steelers were in on him as well, but I think the Giants are overvaluing that asset there. Christian Kirk, wide receiver for the Jaguars. The Steelers actually were probably going to be trading for him, but he broke his collarbone in week 8 against the Green Bay Packers. But yeah, we're talking about Mike Williams here. Williams, so far this season, he has a 94, or since 2018, this is from Pro Football Focus. Mike Williams has a 94.1 receiving grade. That's third in the league, 91 receptions, which is second in the league, and nearly 1,500 yards, which is second in the league. So you make this trade hoping that you get the Mike Williams from 2 or 3 years ago when he was still a 1,000-yard receiver. He did deal with an ACL injury last year with the Chargers, so he's still working his way back from that. And I think lack of opportunity with the Jets spelled doom for him there. But if you can get even half of the Mike Williams from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think you're going to get a hell of an asset to put opposite George Pickens. He is your second go up and get the ball threat. He's one of the better red zone wide receivers in the league for the past 5 years. So he's going to be your opposite. Go up, get the deep ball threat opposite George Pickens, which is something Russell Wilson loves to do. The moon ball he likes to throw. So if this was a move, if he were coming to the Steelers, maybe over the offseason, if he didn't sign with the Jets, I'd be much more excited then. Or if this was a couple weeks ago, I'd be much more excited because then we didn't have to go through the whole, Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins, those guys are available type deal. So a little bit of an underwhelming move, but it is a move nonetheless. The Steelers made a second trade. They brought in defensive end Preston Smith from the Green Bay Packers. And I saw on Twitter many people saying, oh, does this spell bad news for Nick Herbig and his hamstring injury? From what I get, that isn't the case. You got, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig should be coming back for this game against the Commanders this weekend. But after that, you got Jeremiah Moon has done well so far, especially on special teams. But I wonder if Preston Smith is going to be more of the outside linebacker type of player in this defense, like an Alex Highsmith or TJ Watt, or if he's going to be rotating in on the edges, spelling Cameron Hayward or Larry Ogunjobi, who by PFF grades, Larry Ogunjobi hasn't really been one of the worst defensive linemen in the league this year, which, take PFF's grades for what you ask for, what it's worth. Preston Smith, since 2021, he's got 28 sacks, 158 pressures, and 58 run stops. So he's going to definitely help more than he's going to hurt the team. I think, you're going to get as minimal of a drop off as possible with Highsmith and Watt. If they were to come out of the game, you're going to get a minimal drop off there. James Carlo in there just getting home from work. I know about Mike Williams, which I called, by the way, and Preston from Green Bay. Is there anyone else? Nothing yet there, James. Maybe I think the Steelers are done for the day. If they were going to do anything, that might be to maybe trade a 7th-round pick in a draft next year or 2 years from now to bring in another offensive lineman. But even then, I don't see them doing any moves. You could say, they could trade for defensive back. We've seen 2 corner trades here today, but you're getting Cam Sutton back from suspension. That's pretty much a trade in and of itself. So I think the Steelers are done for the day, but you get 2 veteran players who are going to get fresh starts here in Pittsburgh and are going to bring some great contributions to the team, I believe, and make a run for the playoffs. You're in the league division. You're leading the division right now, and you're really getting into the meat and potatoes of your schedule here. You got the Commanders this weekend. They're going to be a much, much harder opponent than what we anticipated at the beginning of the year. You're going to get all 6 of your divisional games against the Bengals and the Ravens, the Browns. I mean, they sold off Zadarius Smith this morning to the Lions, so the Browns are clear sellers, but they are a greater threat with Deshaun Watson being out for the year with his Achilles tear. Jameis Winston, he's even at his worst. I believe he's a much better quarterback than Deshaun Watson has been for the past 2 to 3 years since he's been in Cleveland. So, but it'll be interesting to see how Preston Smith fits in to this defense, and I believe Mike Williams is going to be 10 times the player he was in New York because he's actually going to get a legitimate opportunity. The ACL coming off of that, you wonder how much that's going to affect him, and I think his strengths of being a home run, deep ball go-getter like George Pickens is really going to help him, especially Russell Wilson throwing the ball. So really, if you look at it now, you got your 2 deep threats in George Pickens and Mike Williams, and then you have Calvin Austin right now filling in as your space eater who you get the ball in his hands. He's going to make a couple guys miss and use his speed to his ability, which he has had a great year so far. I think better than any of us anticipated, especially against the Giants. I think that was a coming out game for him, but we will see how the rest of this plays out. We got 3 minutes here until the deadline. Just refreshing Twitter right now. So just an update on some trade compensation. It was a 5th round pick going back to the Jets for Mike Williams, and you got a 7th round pick going to Green Bay for Preston Smith. I mean, Preston Smith, he's an edge rusher linebacker. I mean, I wonder whether he's going to, like I said, I would like to see him spell more Larry Ogunjobi and Cam Hayward to give those guys some legitimate breaks because DeMarvin Leal is out for the season with a neck injury. And I like it because he's going to be a great run stopper, especially because the Steelers, they just got gashed the past couple of weeks, especially Tyrone Tracy, who, I'm sure half of the Steelers fan base, if not much more, were like, who the hell is Tyrone Tracy? He just carved up the Steelers for over 100 yards on Monday Night Football in the Steelers last game. So, but yeah, just looking. If you want to, I got the trades from today and really the past week scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. Let's talk about the Ravens for a second. Familiar face Deontay Johnson got traded there earlier last week for, I believe it was a 5th, and then the Ravens also got a 6th back. So Deontay Johnson is back in the division, but he is now a rat bird. It'll be interesting to see how he plays into that offense. And that really wasn't their problem. The Ravens got the best, statistically wise, the best passing offense and rushing offense in the league. So they add, a strength to it. They strengthen their strength even more there by adding Deontay Johnson, but he did not have any receptions. I wonder if I think it might have been 0 targets for 0 receptions on 0 targets this past weekend when they played the Broncos, but it's his first game in a new offense. So, I'm sure he will be more involved, especially as the weeks go on here, and we're going to see him on the field a good bit against the Steelers. The Ravens also got corner Tre'Davious White from the Rams. Tre'Davious White, he's sort of Tre'Davious White, in my opinion, he's sort of in the same boat as Mike Williams, where he is not the player you're hoping if you're the Ravens that he can be the Tre'Davious White of 2 to 3 years ago. I believe he's a Pro Bowler, All Pro, maybe with the Bills, was one of the top corners in the league there for a while up in Buffalo, and then he sort of just dropped off up there, went to the Rams. I forget, maybe he went somewhere else too. I don't know. Tre'Davious White, he's had a lot of injury problems in his career, but he went to he went to the Rams this past offseason, signed there, with the Rams really retooling their defense since Aaron Donald retired. Not really sure what his stats are this year, but I think because the Ravens, they were in the market for Saints corner Marshawn Lattimore. We'll get to him here in a second. The Ravens, that's sort of like their panic pickup there to have some miracle of strengthening their pass defense, which is by far the worst part of their team this year. So it should be fun when the Steelers and Ravens get together, because now you got one of the best deep ball passers in the league, Russell Wilson. You got the best passing offense in the league in the Ravens going up against a phenomenal deep ball passer in Russell Wilson going up against the weak Ravens secondary. So I expect, even though it's an AFC North game and those games are always tight or low scoring, one in the trenches, slugfest rugby scrums, don't be surprised if when the Ravens and Steelers meet this year that at least one of those two games is going to be an absolute shootout that whoever gets the ball last will win. So, yeah, we're just scrolling through Twitter right now. Some updates with the addition of Preston Smith. The Steelers are waiving tight end Rodney Williams to make roster space. I think Williams is going to, pass through waivers, and he'll end up back on the Steelers practice squad. He's pretty decent special teamer for the Steelers. So I expect him to, pass through waivers and get back on the practice squad. So no harm, no foul there. Yeah, seeing a bunch of Preston Smith, Rodney Williams. 4:02, the trade deadline has ended. Doing one more refresh here to see if anything came through the wire last minute. Not seeing too much here. There is one last trade. The Texans, a former Steeler, actually, another former Steeler on the move. The Texans traded defensive tackle Khalil Davis to the 49ers in exchange for a 2026 second-round pick. So pretty, just a little firecracker to go off to end this whole thing. So trade deadline day is over. That was one of the more active trade deadlines in recent memory. Khalil Davis, I'm trying to remember. Didn't Khalil Davis, I want to say it was one of the preseason games of the Steelers. They were playing like the Seahawks or something. It might have been the first year Kenny Pickett got drafted. I think Khalil Davis absolutely bodied someone to end the game, and it got a huge reaction from Mike Tomlin. But trade deadline is finally passed. There were no more moves that came through the wire, so we're going to go one more time before I hop off here. I'm going to go till about 4:30 here. So let's go through the moves one by one at the bottom of the screen. Let's start with Josh Uche, the linebacker, outside pass rusher for the Patriots. He goes to Kansas City. Kansas City also got DeAndre Hopkins. So it boggles my mind that I think it's safe to say that the Kansas City Chiefs are the new New England Patriots, where everybody hates them, and you're wondering why now. Everybody is helping. Now, the most infuriating part is that the Kansas City Chiefs, they are 8-0. They just defeated the Buccaneers last night on Monday Night Football, and they haven't even come close to playing at their best potential. Patrick Mahomes looks like the most average, if not below average, quarterback in the league this year, and yet this team is still 8-0. And Mahomes got hurt too. It looked like it might have been a serious non-contact injury he suffered last night. and he uses his voodoo magic on the sideline to get back into the game like it's nothing. And it boggles my mind. The Titans, a conditional fifth? You couldn't have sent DeAndre Hopkins, who was one of the top 10, top 15 wide receivers in the league within the past 10 years, and you send him, even if he was, a little bit low in the value, you send him to the Chiefs for a fifth-round pick, a conditional fifth-round pick? I believe the conditions are the Chiefs, make the Super Bowl and he plays 60% of the snaps or something. Anybody with half a brain can tell you that DeAndre Hopkins, who is one of the best wide receivers in the league for the past half decade, you send him from a Titans team that has Will Levis throwing him the ball most of the time, who Will Levis looks like he's going to be in the Canadian Football League next year. You're telling me you're going to send DeAndre Hopkins to Patrick Mahomes? Even with Mahomes being pedestrian this year, DeAndre Hopkins is going to turn back the clock, and we saw it last night. He had 8 receptions for over or near 100 yards. I don't have the stats pull up in front of me, and 2 touchdowns. Anybody with half a brain could tell you that he's going to go there and he's going to light it up. And then the Patriots, who, I guess this is a passing of the baton. Hey, us, the New England Patriots, we were the dynasty of the early of the 2000s and the 2010s. We are now going to pass the torch by giving one of our better defensive players for the past 2 years to you, the New England Patriots, to you, the Kansas City Chiefs. We are passing the baton of the most hated team in the league onto you. So the rich get richer. They now replace the Chiefs did Rashee Rice, who's out with the year, or at least supposedly out with the year. They replaced Rashee Rice with DeAndre Hopkins, and I believe they lost an outside linebacker in Willie Gay over the offseason. They now add Josh Uche to that defensive rank. So the Steelers, when they meet the Chiefs on Christmas Day, that's going to be, a really tough matchup. And it sucks that game's at 1 p.m. I get that you have 2 games on Monday day. Why not have it be 4:15 and then 8 o'clock? Kids are going to wake up in the morning and open up their presents, and then you got people traveling around during the afternoon to see family. Why not just make that a night game? Make it a Christmas dinner thing where all the family gathers around the table and we watch as Patrick Mahomes gets the ball back with under 2 minutes, and he's going to use his voodoo magic and the powers of Taylor Swift to march down the field on the Steelers. If you're going to make us play the Chiefs, at least make it, reasonable at a decent time, not at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's traveling around and all that. We've already covered Deontay Johnson to the Ravens. I mean, if you're a Steelers fan, are you really worried about that? Because like I said, the Ravens' problem isn't on offense. They're just adding strength to a strength. Their problem is on defense. And yeah, they did get Tre'Davious White, but that's not really much of an upgrade. So, Deontay Johnson, he's now what? You got Zay Flowers. You got Derrick Henry. Well, okay, let's count Lamar Jackson because he's the most mobile and dynamic quarterback in the league. So you got Lamar Jackson, you got Derrick Henry, you got Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely I put ahead of him, and then Zay Flowers. Deontay Johnson is now your 6th best, weapon on that offense. I don't think Deontay Johnson's going to scare me. And, you got the, of course, the, criticisms from here in Pittsburgh and stereotypes. He doesn't catch the ball. When he does, he drops it and he runs backwards and all that. But I think the great part about Johnson going to the Ravens is that nobody else in the league knows Deontay Johnson better than Steelers. If anybody's going to know how to stop Johnson, it's going to be Mike Tomlin and his defense that has gone against him in practice since he got in the league. And I'll tell you one thing, Deontay Johnson going to the Ravens doesn't even come close enough to terrifying me as much as if he would have went to the Kansas City Chiefs. Another trade. We're just going down the line here of the trade, scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Offensive tackle Cam Robinson. He's going to go from sunny Jacksonville. He's going to need to go to the store and buy some heavy duty coats and some pants. He goes up to Minnesota, which Minnesota has slid. They've got off to a hot, 4-0, 5-0 start to the season. They have dropped off recently, and they lost their Pro Bowl left tackle, really one of the better left tackles in the league, Christian Darrisaw, for the year. He's out. So Cam Robinson is hopefully going to be a stopgap there to, not be as good as Christian Darrisaw, but be a suitable starter until Darrisaw gets healthy next year. I'm not sure what his contract situation is, but that trade right there won't really affect the Steelers until playoffs, should they meet the Vikings in the Super Bowl or something. Baron Browning, Denver Broncos outside linebackers. He goes from Denver to Arizona. So Arizona, which really doesn't have that much, they really don't have anybody on defense. I mean, they got Budda Baker as a safety, which, Budda Baker, he's been quiet, kind of like Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Steelers, an elite safety who, hasn't really made any splash. And I think Dennis Gardeck, that defense really hasn't, had all that many star-studded players. I would have thought the Cardinals would have been a team to go get a Calais Campbell or some other, or Zadarius Smith even, some other higher pedigree defender. James Greco here in the chat. Bills make any move? No, the Bills didn't make any moves today. I think they only got Amari Cooper, but that was a couple weeks ago. But I think the Bills, they did not get anybody. I'm trying to think of their situation. If you're a Bills fan, I'm kind of happy where the team is. You got Josh Allen, a hell of a weapon in Amari Cooper, and us Steelers fans, we know Amari Cooper fairly well from his time here in the AFC North. I think he's going to be a heck of an addition up there in Buffalo. Of course, when he gets healthy, I think he was out with injury, but you guys got a pretty good threesome at the wide receiver position with Cooper and Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir. You got James Cook in the backfield, who I actually have James Cook on one of my fantasy teams. He's just beyond expectations. I think he's really taken a hell of a step. And then you got Josh Allen. So I think the Bills are in good shape. The only problem for the Bills would be on their defense. You lost Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, your two starting safeties from last year. Now you replace them with DeMar Hamlin, and I think didn't you guys get a safety, Cole Bishop, in the draft? So James continuing here, looking for more defensive help with Matt Milano. Yeah, that's a problem. Matt Milano, one of the better linebackers in the league, outside linebackers. He's had some injury troubles for the past couple of years, but I don't know. Is Matt Milano out for the year? You have to get back to me on that, James. I don't know if Matt Milano is out for the year, but I think when Matt Milano gets back, you should be better on defense. But there were no moves for the Bills trade-wise, just the addition of Amari Cooper, which if I had to put the Bills in a category right now, I put you in the same spot as the Ravens are here. No, only for a few more weeks. Okay, so that's good. Right now the Bills, I think you guys, it's fairly safe to say you guys have the division wrapped up. You're just competing for higher seeding in the playoffs. You guys are going to make the playoffs. You're going to win that division with the Patriots and Jets and Dolphins. Your division, which was viewed going into the year as this might be a dogfight division where possibly the three top teams, the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills, all make the playoffs. That hasn't been anywhere near the case at all. You guys are going to win that division very, very easily. And I don't think you need Matt Milano right now. I think that's why they were hesitant on making a trade, is that you're going to get Matt Milano back when it matters most, pushing for better seeding in the playoffs and getting him back in the playoffs. I put the Bills right now in the same category as the Ravens. Your defense may have question marks, but even then, a question mark is pretty good, seeing how you guys only gave up 3 points to the Seahawks and you beat other teams down. But once you get Matt Milano back, you guys will be in good shape. I think your offense is better than your defense right now. You're gonna stop some lower opponents because you are one of the upper echelon teams in the AFC. So I think when it matters most, you're going to get Matt Milano back. And even though you guys didn't make any moves, you're going to be in good shape heading into the playoffs. Moving along here, got about, 15 minutes to half an hour before I'm going to hop off for the day. Let's talk about Khalil Herbert to the Bengals, an individual trade. I think that was just, to get another warm body in the backfield if you're the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals, they've got a hell of a hole to dig themselves out of if they're going to have any chance for competing for a playoff spot. So, not really sure what to make of that trade other than it's just a normal warm body in the backfield. Khalil Herbert, I have no idea what he did, but that's sort of a running back by committee out there in Chicago where he was. You had DeAndre Swift out there. I think you had Dante Foreman as well. So that may have been just take this guy off our hands because we're underutilizing him. So Khalil Herbert, I mean, that's not really the move of the Bengals that would scared me. I mean, they're just going to need to be better within and try their damnedest with the roster they have because after this year, the Bengals, you got to pay Jamar Chase and I think T. Higgins and probably their best defensive player, Trey Hendrickson, they're out the door. So the Bengals are in flux right now, and they just need to hope and pray that they have some chance of making the playoffs this year. Let's talk about Zadarius Smith going from Cleveland to Detroit. So let's look at this from the Cleveland side. Zadarius Smith was the opposite pass rusher, opposite Myles Garrett. Cleveland, I mean, I know I give them a hard time, as do all Steelers fans. Like, the Browns is the Browns, but our expectations were low, but holy hell. Deshaun Watson just looked absolutely terrible, and then he blows his Achilles. The Browns were expected to be a little bit more competitive, at least be in the position that the Bengals are in right now. But, you're 2-7, 2-6, something like that. I don't know what the Browns record is right now off the top of my head, but Zadarius Smith, he's going to go get a fresh start in Detroit, which Detroit, they needed Zadarius Smith bad. I mean, just awful. Aiden Hutchinson, his leg injury, just awful seeing that. I mean, I like to think Aiden Hutchinson is one of the more likable guys in the league. I think he did a commercial for the NFL with Cam Hayward last year, 2 years ago. So I really like, if I had to pick, a team that I'm a somewhat decent fan of in the NFC, it's got to be the Lions. So hopefully Zadarius Smith, he's going to not be Aiden Hutchinson, but hopefully he holds that defense up enough. Their offense is good enough to go out there and win a Super Bowl. I mean, they've been without their number 2 wide receiver, Jameson Williams, for the past 2 weeks with suspension, and they just hemmed along that offense led by Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator. You got Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery, the best running back duo in the league. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's turning into a top 10 receiver in the league. Sam Laporta, who's one of the better young tight ends in the league. He's probably easily top 10, maybe even a top 5 tight end in the league. So that offense in Detroit is good enough to win. Now they add Zadarius Smith, who is hopefully going to replace Aiden Hutchinson. Not replace Aiden Hutchinson, but be half at least of what Aiden Hutchinson was to keep that defense afloat out there. Next trade up here. Yeah, we got Zadarius Smith, Khalil Herbert. Wide receiver Jonathan Mingo from Carolina to Dallas. I'm not really sure what that move is, in all honesty. And let's take a moment here to laugh at the Cowboys. They traded a 4th round pick for a 2nd round, they traded a 4th round pick for a 2nd-year wide receiver, Jonathan Mingo. And the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. They only traded 5th-round picks for Mike Williams, Deontay Johnson, and DeAndre Hopkins. Apologies, my phone is ringing here. Get to that later. But I mean, if you're a Cowboys fan, I'm so perplexed by this team. It's they're 2-6 now. They're without Dak Prescott for the next 4 weeks at least. He's going to go on IR, Jerry Jones says. You didn't even attempt to sign Derrick Henry, who's having quite possibly the best year of his career with the Ravens. And then you don't even think to go get Deontay Johnson or DeAndre Hopkins. You get Jonathan Mingo instead. Jerry Jones said that, we're going to trade for a wide receiver that we really loved coming out of the draft. But you gave up a 4th-round pick? And Jonathan Mingo, he's not a world beater. He's not a game changer. I give up a 4th-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. I'd outbid the Chiefs on that if I were the Cowboys. Just the Cowboys are a mess right now. 2 teams that were expected to be easy playoff contenders this year that have completely fallen off the rails. Well, let's turn that into 3 easy teams that we looked at the beginning of the year and said, these guys are going to be the playoffs, not the Jets, the Bengals, and the Cowboys. They have been just huge disappointments and have. I don't get that move at all. I don't think much in the league get that move at all. If you're a Cowboys fan, sorry, not sorry, but yeah, I don't get it. Jonathan Mingo, he's not gonna. You're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. You're without Dak Prescott. You are without Brandon Cooks, who had knee surgery. Jalen Tolbert's been all right. You got CeeDee Lamb. Zeke Elliott, he's a healthy scratch now. Like, you thought, oh, maybe we can revive Zeke for one last run. He's been absolutely horrible, and he's been showing up late to team practices and all that. You're bringing Dalvin Cook off the couch to be number 2 behind Rico Dowdell, who many didn't know even existed coming into this year. But, I mean, I don't get it. Mike McCarthy, head coach of the Cowboys, he's going to get fired after this year. And you may be seeing the last of Micah Parsons in a Cowboys uniform because he's going to be due a payday, and you already paid Prescott and Lamb. You were going to get 1, at most 2 of those core 3 back. So they're going to go all in on offense. And Cowboys not in a good spot in the standings in their situation. Let's talk about one of the bigger, if not the biggest trade of the day. Marshawn Lattimore, corner for the New Orleans Saints, heads from Mardi Gras City to Washington, D.C. He goes to the Washington Commanders. And if you're the Commanders, you are absolutely stoked. The season has already been a success. Jaden Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You're 7-2. You're now Marshawn Lattimore. He's going to be active. To what aspect he will be featured, I don't know. But Marshawn Lattimore versus George Pickens, that is going to be must-watch television. We know Marshawn Lattimore likes to stir the crap, and George Pickens, whether he gets sucked into that. I mean, Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans of the Buccaneers, that is like a heavyweight fight. Legitimately a heavyweight fight. Those two absolutely hate each other. They punch each other every other play. It'll be interesting to see George Pickens versus Marshawn Lattimore now this weekend, because if Lattimore gets under the skin of Pickens certainly will retaliate. So that might be some punches thrown in that matchup. I'm sure Zach Azzani and Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith, they're going to get in Pickens' ear and say, hey, this is what he's going to try to do to get under your skin. So Marshawn Lattimore paired up against George Pickens, that's going to be a very interesting matchup. And I just think that's a great acquisition for the Commanders, because Emmanuel Forbes, who was their first-round pick 2 years ago, the Joey Porter Jr. draft, they took Emmanuel Forbes in the first round, and he's been he's become a healthy scratch for him. So they were very much regretting that draft decision. But Marshawn Lattimore, he brings more stability to that defense, which is led by Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, a defense that really wasn't expected to be all that dominant. They've really been good so far this year for the Commanders, and the Commanders have been the surprise of the year thus far. I'm trying to think of other teams that have maybe exceeded expectations up to this point. Can't really think of any, but yeah, we're just winding down here. I'm running out of things to say. We've already covered Mike Williams and Preston Smith to Pittsburgh. We talked about that. Tre'Davious White to Baltimore, not really that big of a worry. I mean, is he an upgrade over what they currently have in Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins, the rookie? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. And is he going to be healthy by the time the Steelers play him? I mean, Tre'Davious White's made of glass. He's had a bunch of troubles staying on the field, so it'll be interesting to see if he's healthy and in what way he's going to, play against the Steelers when that time comes. So now let's just this is from Adam Schefter, the final 2024 trade tally. So we're going to read through this list, and then that'll be it for the stream. I saw up to 10 of you in here at this point. Thank you all for those of you who commented in the chat here. I really love interacting with you. It gives me stuff to talk about, keeps, things on my mind here, keeps me engaged with the audience, and that really makes it easier for me to stream. So let's go through this here. Marshawn Lattimore to the Washington Commanders. Davante Adams to the Jets. Good job, Davante. You could have been in Pittsburgh with Russell Wilson, but you went from losing in Las Vegas to losing in New York with your friend. DeAndre Hopkins to KC. Way to go, Titans. You helped the rich get richer. Amari Cooper from the Browns to the Buffalo Bills. Deontay Johnson to Baltimore. Welcome back to the AFC North, Deontay. We very much look forward to playing against you. Mike Williams and Preston Smith to Pittsburgh. Williams going to get a much better opportunity than he ever had in New York. I think he's going to be not the, most elite or sexiest of additions at this trade deadline, but he's going to be a reliable wide receiver too, especially if you get the Mike Williams from the Los Angeles Charger days. And Preston Smith, really shocked that Green Bay sold him. Green Bay's in the hunt for a playoff, and they sold him for a 7th-round pick to the Steelers. But hey, we'll take it. Another edge rusher doesn't hurt you. When TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are on the field, you got Preston Smith and Nick Herbig in there. I will take that tandem each and every day, and I'm pretty sure that tandem might be, a starting edge rusher duo on half the teams in the league. Khalil Davis, former Steelers depth defensive tackle. He goes to the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco's been underwhelming this year, and that division is up for grabs with the Rams, Cardinals, and Seahawks. Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver from the Panthers. He goes to Dallas. Not really sure what Dallas is doing there. I'm not sure much of the league does either. Josh Uche goes as a dynasty passing of the torch gift from the New England Patriots to the Kansas City Chiefs. Cam Robinson, he goes from Jacksonville up to Minnesota. He's going to fill in for Christian Darrisaw, who's out for the year up there. Tre'Davious White, former Pro Bowl corner who has lost a step, I think, the past couple of years. He goes to Baltimore to maybe revive his career and compete for the playoffs, maybe even the Super Bowl for Baltimore. Baron Browning, outside linebacker, goes from Denver to Arizona. Denver still, on the outside looking in, but still competing for a playoff spot. They sell at the deadline to the Arizona Cardinals. So, I mean, like I said, the Cardinals, they don't really have an elite player on defense, maybe Budda Baker or Dennis Gardeck, but that's it. So they're going to just look at hopefully quantity over quality in that case. Cam Akers, he goes from, I believe he was with, who was Cam Akers with? He bounced around a lot. He was with the Rams, and then he might have been with the Texans. Anyway, he goes up to Minnesota. He's a number 2 or maybe even another 3 behind Aaron Jones. Khalil Herbert, depth running back addition for the Bengals. He's going to be in the backfield with Zach Moss and what's the Brown they have? They got a Brown brother there. I forget his name. Ernest Jones goes to the Seattle Seahawks, and Ernest Jones goes from Tennessee to Seattle. In return, Jerome Baker goes back to Tennessee. So middle linebacker swap. I think Seattle got the better of the two middle linebackers in that case. And Seattle adds defensive tackle Roy Robertson Harris. So Seattle loading up on defense. They do not sell off either of their two options, even though they're in a dogfight for their division, which I don't know if they're going to be my favorite coming out of the NFC West. Would probably be the 49ers just because of, pedigree alone. But, rumors surrounding DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett never came true. The Steelers would have probably been Super Bowl contenders had they gotten one of those guys. So those guys stay put. So one more recap here of what the Steelers did. They brought in Preston Smith. They now, you guys can let me know in the comments. I think they have probably the best outside linebacker room in the league. You got Watt Highsmith, Preston Smith, and Nick Herbig coming back from injury. That is one of the more elite outside linebacker rooms in the league, if not the best. Mike Williams, I think in the moment right now, Steeler fans are underwhelmed. You had all the sexy, flashy additions flashing in your face for months now. Brandon Aiyuk to the Steelers. They're going to pay him big money. He's going to be like a second number 1 out there. He stays in San Francisco. Davante Adams, he didn't want to come to Pittsburgh. He goes instead with his best buddy, Aaron Rodgers. You got Cooper Kupp, who was Super Bowl MVP when the Rams won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. He stays put because the Rams are going to try to contend for that division. So, like I said, I think Mike Williams, we're underwhelmed right now, but at the end of the day, I think he is going to be phenomenal, fitting what this offense does. Deep ball catcher who doesn't fumble the ball. And I think Russell Wilson and him are going to be a very great second duo. If Russell Wilson can make Van Jefferson for the past 2 weeks look like a solid number 2 wide receiver in the league, I think Mike Williams, we get the Chargers version of Mike Williams. He's going to be, I believe he's 30 years old, 29 years old. Maybe he turns 30 here soon. Or maybe he is 30, 31, something like that. He's somewhere in that range. But he's going to be a mentor to the young wide receivers on top of being a good talent and a good addition to the wide receiver room. So with that, I saw at least 12 people in the stream so far. We're going to wrap up here about 52 minutes of the stream. I've got other commitments here. But trade deadline is in the books for months. The months-long saga of getting a second wide receiver on the Steelers is over. It is Mike Williams. Welcome to Pittsburgh, Mike Williams, and welcome to Pittsburgh, Preston Smith. Steelers are gearing up for a run here. They are going to be, I think, in a dogfight with the Ravens till the end of the year for the division. And, for the first time since, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years since Big Ben retired, the Steelers may be legitimate Super Bowl contenders. But time will tell. Steelers will play the Washington Commanders. They get a very tough and trying matchup. I think it's going to be a good game right out of the bye week. Usually the Steelers are a pretty good after the bye week team. So after a 6-2 start, 10, 12-5 isn't really that far-fetched. So we will see how these additions, as well as all the other additions around the league, add up. Thank you all for watching. Please come back tomorrow. If you haven't checked out my content already, I do daily episodes of the Steel City Sports Report recapping news from all three of the professional sports teams in Pittsburgh. So come back here tomorrow for a Wednesday edition of that. I'm sure I'm going to be talking about the trades. There's going to be some Pirates news added in there. Pirates made some moves, and there's some interesting stuff going on in the baseball world right now. Probably going to be talking about the Penguins game tonight. They take on the New York Islanders in Long Island. So with that, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys back here tomorrow. And please be sure to like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.